Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. In this one, I'll be previewing the Week 9 waiver wire. So I'll go position by position, look at quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, and defenses, and sort of tell you guys which guys I would be looking to add to my roster ahead of Week 9. We've got a couple buys here in Week 9, so obviously there will be some players that get dropped. People will need to find starters. Obviously, lots of injuries to deal with, and obviously, I think there's actually a lot of guys to talk about this week on the waiver wire that are pretty quality ads. I don't think there's anybody that really runs away with things in terms of like being nobody that I'd be dumping a ton of fab on, but I think there are a lot of guys that still need to be looked at as pretty high quality ads, and I think there are a lot of things we can do this week to help our teams. So if you guys have any specific ad or drop questions, just let me know in the comments. I love helping you guys out there, and otherwise, I'll get into it. And if you guys think I missed any players or any of that, just let me know. I'm happy to give you guys my opinion on that as well. Starting things off with the quarterback position, I think my primary ad would actually be Bo Nix, who's playing really well right now, and it seems like Sean Payton is more than willing to run scores up against bad teams. They just play the Panthers, and a common concern with guys like this is that you're going to see a team get up a ton like they did against the Panthers, and just sort of take their foot off the gas, not really try and do anything other than run the clock out. And it seemed like Sean Payton was on a mission to put up 50 against this Panthers team. I know they didn't technically do that, but I think that kind of attitude, whether it's right or not, certainly increases the ceiling for your fantasy assets. So it's certainly something that we like to see. He's also just running the ball a ton, so he gives you a really safe floor. I believe he's the passing touchdown leader in the month of October as well. So playing pretty well, honestly, and he's certainly somebody that I think could be, especially in good matchups, someone that we can stream going forward. So he's not a guy that I want to start every single week, but given quality matchups, I think Bo Nix is certainly somebody that we can look at as a quality starting option. Russell Wilson as well also continues to play well. It's 2 straight weeks of honestly really solid play for Russ here. Had a lot of things called back, like he had touchdown called back to penalty, a touchdown called back to like a really fluky non-catch by George Pickens where he tapped one foot twice instead of getting the second foot down. Russ could have actually ended up with a really monster game here and still ended up with almost 300 total yards and a touchdown. He's a good player. He's playing really well right now. They got a bye this week, so nothing that he's not a guy that I'm really looking to use as like a week 9 streaming option, obviously, but they play the Commanders in week 10. That game could potentially be a shootout, so just think something to look forward to there. I think he's a guy we could potentially stash, and also I'll be at that Steelers-Commanders game in week 10, so if you want to root for him with me, it'd be a lot of fun there. Jameis Winston, just have to list him here. He's just a lot of fun. They play the Chargers this week, who are at least beatable through the air. Jameis is obviously playing really well. At least last week he did over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. If he keeps playing like that, this entire Browns offense is going to look completely different. And Winston obviously is a guy that has a really wide range of outcomes every week, so that is certainly something that we want to look for. And then Matthew Stafford has all his weapons back and has a really great matchup against Seattle in week 9. Seattle's been one of the worst defenses in the NFL over the last stretch here, so Stafford's a guy we can certainly stream in plus matchups, and in week 9 he's got one. So if you want to pick up Stafford to play him, you certainly can do that this week. Moving on to the running back position here, I'll start things off with Tyrone Tracy Jr. I doubt he's available on waivers, but it's possible because he obviously had a down week last week after Devin Singletary came back, but it wasn't because Singletary was back. They just couldn't do anything on offense this week against this Pittsburgh Steelers. He was absolutely dominant, had 20 touches, over 140 rushing yards and a touchdown, played great. Did leave this game with what looks to be a concussion, so maybe he won't be ready for week 9 here, but he's got you absolutely one on your roster the rest of the way. He should not be on any waiver wires right now. Jalen Warren continues to get involved. Played pretty well this last week for the Steelers. We haven't seen the Steelers need to be in like a comeback play from behind mode, but this is a team that their schedule gets a lot tougher in the back half of the season. They obviously have to play their division, so the Bengals and Ravens twice, the Browns twice as well. They have games against the Commanders, Chiefs, and Eagles. So their last 9 games are against some pretty solid offenses and teams. So this is going to be a team that's going to score more going forward, and I think that Jalen Warren, as like that pass catching back, 2-minute drill back, could be a guy that could be a solid flex, like low end RB2 for you if you need him. Alexander Mattison continues to get a ton of volume for the Raiders. Obviously, he's not great. The Raiders offense sucks, but volume is king. If you need him, you could certainly pick him up and play him, and he just shouldn't really be on waivers with the kind of volume he's getting. Tyler Algier, just a really valuable handcuff. I got to mention him, along with a lot of the other handcuffs here. Like that's basically what we're looking at for the rest of these running backs. These are guys that are only really valuable if the guy ahead of them gets injured, but there would be a ton of value if that were to happen. So Algier fits that mold there. Isaac Guerrero played really well this last week against the Cowboys, and if Jordan Mason happens to not be ready in week 10 and maybe McCaffrey misses one more week, you could get 1 week of a really good start out of Guerrero. If Mason's going to miss a lot of time with a shoulder injury, just having the backup to McCaffrey is always something we want to recommend as well. So Guerrero's a guy we've got to at least have on our radar. Kamani Vidal continues to play a pretty significant amount of snaps for the Chargers. Not doing a lot with them, but neither has Dobbins been lately. So, there's obviously at least path towards him potentially taking the job there. And even if that doesn't happen, like if something were to happen to Dobbins, Vidal would absolutely get a ton of work in what's been a pretty good offense that's obviously going to lean on the run. So I like Vidal as a guy that should be on rosters. Blake Corum, same thing, clear backup in Los Angeles for the Rams. If something were to happen to Kyron, he would be a stud. And then Dalvin Cook, I have to mention him because it seemed like they wanted to get him touches this week. I think he sucked. I think Zeke sucked. I think Rico Dowdle is still the best running back on this roster, but like if you want to go there, I think Dalvin Cook. I have to mention him. I'm not excited about it. I wouldn't want to go there, but if you're in a super deep league, he at least is worth mentioning, I guess. Next up at wide receiver here, I'll start things off with the obvious. Cedric Tillman looks incredible. Had 99 receiving yards, 7 catches, 2 touchdowns. He's the wide receiver 1 in Cleveland. He looks good. He's a guy that they raved about all offseason, and now he's finally thrust into a role where that can happen with the trade of Amari Cooper. So couple that with Jameis Winston playing really well. Cedric Tillman's a guy that I sort of view as like a wide receiver 3 the rest of the way, and there might be upside beyond that. Like if Tillman is actually that dude, if he's actually a good player, then like Tillman could be a legitimately valuable fantasy asset the rest of the way. So got to mention him for sure. Keon Coleman as well. These two guys are guys that I would be willing to spend a significant chunk of fab on. Coleman looked awesome. Might be emerging as the wide receiver 1 there. We had Amari Cooper with 1 catch for 3 yards. Coleman was hyper targeted in this game. They threw 2 straight fades to him in the red zone against the Seattle Seahawks. Caught one of them, was an awesome one-handed touchdown catch. He's getting better and better every week, and basically a first-round draft pick. 2 straight weeks of great production here. This Bills passing offense is starting to look really good. I think Coleman needs to be on rosters, potentially in like our flex going forward. Jalen McMillan going to continue seeing a ton of volume. The Sterling Shepard injury only opens up more opportunities for him, so he's got to be on off waivers now. Both Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore. Like Elijah Moore had 12 targets this week. Jerry Jeudy had a lot of targets as well. This is going to be a Browns offense that might be just completely different the rest of the season with Jameis Winston. So in case Winston does just make this entire offense good, both those guys probably need to be picked up just in case they emerge as like the clear 2 in the offense. Ricky Pearsall looked pretty good this last week and should only get better and better. Like we got to remember this dude was shot in August, so like he's gonna get better and better as the season goes on. Juwan Jennings should be back as well, so that's not great. But like you have Deebo Samuel who got banged up this week. George Kittle's known to get banged up. There's going to be opportunity in this offense for him to potentially be involved. And like Pearsall was a first-round draft pick. He should be the number 2 behind Deebo if everyone's healthy here. So he's a guy that I absolutely want off of waivers for sure. Josh Downs, clearly the best wide receiver in Indianapolis at this point, and Joe Flacco could certainly start there. They've been pretty vocal about the possibility of, they're evaluating their options. Anthony Richardson's been awful. If Joe Flacco gets the start, Josh Downs is right back into being a solid wide receiver 3. And then Rashad Bateman, I got to mention him as well. He keeps playing well. He's involved. He's just a good player, and he's finally getting enough volume here where I think we can use him as like a low-end flex. So Bateman's obviously a guy that I don't think needs to be on waivers anymore. He's someone that I would want to pick up. At tight end here, I'll start things off with Cade Otton. He's just going to be hyper targeted. He is a tight end 1. You're starting every single week until Mike Evans is back, and there's just not a lot more to say about that. He looked really good. 2 touchdowns this week. He needs to be in lineups for sure. Zach Ertz keeps producing 7 for 77 this week. That's fantastic. Plays the Giants this next week. They're not a defense that really scares us. Commanders offense should be better next week as well. Jaden Daniels having practice for the full week. So Zach Ertz is a guy that you can play, and he just keeps getting it done. So, some points out of the tight end position is pretty good, honestly, the way things have gone. Hunter Henry still seems to be the number 1 target in New England, so I've got to mention him. He's pretty much a staple on here, someone that we could mention every week, but he's good enough. He's got ceiling that a lot of tight ends don't have, so he probably shouldn't be on waivers. And then Noah Fant, he's got a good matchup in Week 9 against the Rams. He's been involved enough, and if DK Metcalf were to miss Week 9 again, I would expect him to be pretty much really important in this offense. And even if DK plays, elevates the whole ceiling for the offense. So I think Fant's a guy you could stream if you're in like a deeper league. And onto the defenses here, lots of options to highlight, so I'll start things off with the Saints, who play the Panthers. Pretty easy every week, target teams that play the Panthers. The Saints are a decent enough defense. They should be a really solid play there. The Vikings get to play the Colts. They're a really great defense that now get to play one of, if not the best matchups for opposing defenses here. Anthony Richardson's been awful. Even if they go to Flacco, I think you can go with the Vikings, but if Anthony Richardson is a starter, the Vikings are a great play. The Bengals get to play the Raiders, so a little scary because the Bengals aren't great, but like the Raiders are by no means good on offense, so I think I'd feel pretty good about the Bengals there. The Eagles get to play the Jaguars this next week. The Jaguars have actually been a pretty decent team to target for defenses, and now they just lost every single receiver on their team basically, so the Eagles are a team that we could go for. Like the Eagles just held the Bengals down as well, so you could do a lot worse than Philly. The Chargers play the Browns this next week. A little scary with how Jameis Winston played, but obviously there's a lot of ceiling there. The Chargers have a good pass rush. Secondary's been okay. I think you can still play the Chargers, but Winston can kill you, so it's a little scary there. The Patriots play the Titans play the Patriots. You can play either one of those. Good matchups for both. Neither defense is horrible, so you could certainly do that. Then the Steelers, got to mention them. They might get dropped this week since they're bye. If they get dropped, absolutely pick them up. They're one of the few defenses that I think you can start every single week, and I would just be happy to have on my team and hold through the bye if I needed to. That'll do it for the Week 9 waiver wire. Up next, I'll be going over some trade targets, so I'll highlight players that I've been looking to trade for or away ahead of Week 9. Obviously, this time of year, we're getting a lot more like real team specific, so based off of what your record is, what you're looking to do. If you're 2-6, you got to win out. You got to trade for players that are set up for success, target guys that are through their bye and stuff like that. If you're 6-2, you're looking towards the playoffs. You're looking to trade for guys that have good playoff schedules. So we'll touch on all that. Make sure we can do our best to help you guys get situated in the best spot possible going forward. If you want to make sure you don't miss that video or any future videos, we've got start sits, we've got weekly live streams, weekly recaps, waivers, of course, here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, that way you don't miss any of the future content. If you made it this far in the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It just helps me out quite a bit. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to help you guys out there. Appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you with the next one. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.